Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Jenny and I work for the international team here at Business West. Just before we start today's webinar, I'd just like to go through a few quick housekeeping points just to make sure everything runs smoothly today. If you're having any technical difficulties during the course of the webinar, if you could please use the chat function which is featured at the bottom of your screen, and we'll endeavour to help you with any problems. We've allowed time at the end of the questions. If you have any questions, please, if you could type those into the Q&A section, also at the bottom of your screen. We'll then invite you to ask your question at the end, and we'll ask you to unmute your mics and ask your question. On that note, if I could ask anyone who's online just to make sure their mics are muted throughout the session, it will just reduce any feedback that may happen. If you'd like to ask your message privately, please do so via the chat section, and to your events team, and we'll be able to ask that question for you. We'll try our best to get through all of the questions today. However, if there are any we're unable to answer, then we'll follow up with you after the event and put you in touch with an advisor. And just on a final note, today's webinar is being recorded, just for your information. I'm now pleased to introduce my colleague Nigel Barker, Digital Advisor for the Department for International Trade. He's delivering today's webinar. Thank you, and over to you, Nigel.
Thanks, Jenny. Welcome today. I hope the sun is shining still where you are. It is here, so if it comes around to a certain point, I might go very pale, if you can see my face as the sun blisters its way through my window. But anyway, we're going to be talking about a subject I get asked all the time in my role, and that is, what should I do as a business? Should I sell through marketplaces, or should I sell through my own website? And as we go through, you'll find there's no one answer that fits all. But in this kind of not post-COVID, but current COVID world that we're living in, I think it's become more acute as to sort of decisions that we need to make, and also people are pivoting a lot more. Businesses that have traditionally sold through retail channels, just the bricks and mortar stores, are now suddenly finding themselves moving into more of a business to consumer model and selling their products and their wares online. And understanding what works best for you is kind of key to ensuring that we've got a little bit of future proof in our business, I suppose. And the genie, for me, the genie's been out of the bottle for a long time, but I think it's kind of forced its way out a little bit more over the last 3 months. So hopefully we'll go through this today, and things will be a bit clearer. I touch wood, that's my job anyway. But before we kind of look at that, I want to introduce you to a model that I kind of came up with about 3 or 4 years ago, when I started doing this particular job. And this is, about deciding what we need to do as a business. What I call the 3P models, the three key kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves before we start trying to sell anything online. And I'll bring them up very, very quickly. But the first part of this model is the persona. Who are you selling to? Who buys your stuff? Who is it that buys your actual wares? Your products. Secondly, is what platform are they on, and do you need to therefore be on? And that could be a physical platform. It could be a place. You could think of the other place as being place. It could be an actual shop. At the moment, that's less likely. And the third thing, and this is the really kind of key and important thing, is what's your proposition to those people? Okay, now the persona side of things, I'm not going to go into a persona exercise, but I'm happy to do that. If people want to go through that afterwards, not on as part of this, just drop us an email. But building your personas is really, really key, because every business has got a primary persona and secondary personas and tertiary personas, but they all behave in different ways and they all inhabit different spaces. And depending on where you go in the world, obviously I work for the Department for International Trade, those personas change quite radically, and those spaces that they inhabit change quite radically. Not everybody, for example, is shopping on Amazon. Let's just leave that one there. But so those first two things, the persona and the platform, are relatively easy to establish, because that's kind of your data. You know who buys your stuff or who you want to buy your stuff if you're just launching or if you want to develop into new markets. The platform side of things, you can find out where they exist. The third bit, this tricky bit, is the proposition. That's what are you going to say to them when they kind of land on you? The first time they ever engage with your brand or with your product, what are you going to say? What is it that's going to entice them? And quite often, it's not always, will you marry me? We do a lot of research now. We need to build a lot of trust. So that proposition has to include that. And depending on how you're selling and what channel you're selling through or what channels you're selling through will depend on what that proposition looks like, because it looks very different on your own site to possibly on a marketplace where you're constrained by their particular guidelines. It's when we get those three things crossing over in the middle, you'll see there's a little intersection. I love a Venn diagram. There's a couple coming up. I do apologize if you dislike them, but I adore them because I'm quite visual. But when you get those three things crossing over, you get what I think of as being impact. That doesn't necessarily mean a sale, but that means impact. That means people will, sit up and take notice of what you are doing / saying / selling. Okay, we know it takes 5 or 6 times before people make a purchasing decision after they've sort of experienced your brand. But in order to gain impact, if you put the right proposition on the right platform in front of the right person, you're going to spark some attention. Okay, so that's one particular model. And another, so that leads us to the question, do I go on-site e-commerce? Do I have my own e-commerce solution, or other platforms that my personas are inhabiting, marketplaces? And I think there's a tendency sometimes to sort of almost break them apart and say, I'm either going to do this or I'm either going to do that. And what we have discovered in the last 3 months is something I've always known, and a lot of businesses out there have always known, is actually you can do both, and you kind of need to do both. That is absolutely the way of the world now. But depending on what you're selling, will depend on sort of where you portion your efforts or what you're selling on one versus the other. You might, if you've got multiple products, and might not list them all, on an e-marketplace. You might have some of them on your own e-commerce site and vice versa. So really, I say that the kind of, in the Venn diagram of life, those things merge as well. It is almost like a continuous conversation that you're having. And some businesses will have everything on their own site. Some businesses will have, everything on a marketplace, and some businesses will share it out across, and some will have everything on both. But also the marketplace itself really depends on what you're selling. You might not list all of your stuff on Amazon. You might choose to list some of your stuff only on eBay. Let's say, for example, you've got some end-of-line stock you want to get rid of. eBay's a fabulous place for that. It really is. So, there is a merging of the lines and the barriers, because the different marketplaces have got different audiences and they kind of require different kinds of content. So another model you might be familiar with is the cost versus differentiation model. So, in a nutshell, cost sensitive, price sensitive products or customers, require, one particular thing that they basically want to get it for the best price. If you're selling really generic things like, I don't know, I always pick on toothpaste. I don't know why I pick on toothpaste. Toothpaste has done nothing to offend me. But let's say you are selling toothpaste. Most people make their toothpaste purchasing decisions based a little bit on what they feel fits their personality and their particular own, ethics or morals, if you like, and also quite a lot on price. I'm not going to go and spend 15 quid on a cheaper toothpaste when I can get some for, get some Aquafresh for 89p or whatever it is. Other brands are available. I'm not the BBC. I don't need to say that. Differentiation is where you've got a completely unique product or a more unique product that, people can only come to come to you for that particular product. And I don't mean you've got a different type of Bluetooth speaker, because a Bluetooth speaker is a Bluetooth speaker. There's no real difference. If an alien landed from the planet Zarg, they do pretty much the same things. Some have got better sound quality. Some have got different add-ins, different voice controls. But a Bluetooth speaker is a Bluetooth speaker. And let's say you've got something that's very, very different. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head what it is. I can't, but that there, you could actually say there's an argument for retaining that particular part of your brand, that product, keeping a lot more control over that, because you will actually then almost reap the benefits. You'll be able to charge more. You'll be able to basically, in theory, should get much better margins on it. So cost focuses on price only, really, and differentiation. Products have got a marked difference from competitors. It's difficult to quantify in many areas. With the cost model, it's really easy to get a huge chunk of the market. If you're prepared to price bomb, if you're prepared to enter into that race to the bottom, you can grab a huge chunk of the market just by discounting. And we all know stores across the land that do that, and they do it really successfully. Okay, let's not beat about the bush. Differentiation, because you are asking someone maybe to engage with something they've never seen before, or possibly a feature they don't never experienced before. It's not toothpaste, it's something else. It's harder to get noticed. So you have to actually work really hard to get your product noticed, and it's actually a longer road to success, but the success can be greater. Reality, we don't see the two things merged at all. Again, there's a massive overlap within that, within all of our, within our business, or at least there kind of should be a huge overlap between that. There's a sliding scale, if you like. So again, where does that mean you kind of place your products? Well, if you are selling something that is purely based on price, you just want to throw that in front of a bigger audience, or the biggest audience that you can possibly find. And the obvious place for that is going to be, eMarketplaces, without a shadow of a doubt. They've got huge audiences that go back, day after day after day to shop, the same as, Sainsbury's and Tesco's and Asda and all those other places, do. We're very brand loyal when it comes to shopping in those kind of establishments. Most people will favor one supermarket over another supermarket, where you can still buy the same Kellogg's cornflakes, you can still buy the same toothpaste, but we will go to are the ones we are particularly brand loyal to. And the same's true with, eMarketplaces, especially as you go all around the planet. And we'll go to actually, some eMarketplaces we will favor for some particular types of goods. Don't know why. For some reason, whenever I'm buying electronic stuff, I do seem to go to Amazon. It just seems, I don't know why that is. I just seem to, and a lot of people do that. So that's if you're dealing with the cost side of things. If you are, if you've got something that's incredibly different, you don't necessarily want to open that out onto an e-marketplace. Potentially, you don't need to. You might want to, but you don't necessarily need to. But you are going to have to communicate that that particular message to all of your audience. So, what are the benefits? Sort of bit of pros and cons. So on-site e-commerce. The plus side of this is, you keep 100%, control of your brand. If you do not have 100% control of your brand on your own site, then you need to look at your business and see how that's working. It enables you to build your own customer base. When I say 100% brand control, I mean that thing should look exactly the way you want it to on your website. And if it doesn't, then have a chat with your web developer. And if he can't do anything about it, she can't do anything about it, get another web developer, get someone that can. You need control of that brand. You get to build your own customer base within that. Anyone that buys on your site is your customer. You kind of, in inverted commas, own that customer, and you build that rapport, that relationship with that customer. You are able, in theory, to keep more of the profits, because you're not paying somebody, to sell your stuff. You're not paying for any of the, fulfillment side of things. You can set your own terms and conditions on there, and you can also control which markets that particular, those particular products are sold in. Internationally, you can say, I really, technically, I only want to sell these in sort of, Spain, Italy, and Argentina, for example, if you chose to do that. Downsides of it are you're 100% responsible for customer service, which means how do you deal with out of hours customer service? Now, just in the UK alone, we do not shop 9 to 5. We don't. I don't shop 9 to 5. No one shops 9 to 5 anymore online. Never have. We've always done it at really crazy times. And that means that people ask questions at really crazy times. So how do you deal with that customer service? How do you deal with the transactions? Integration of payment gateways into your system. You know, how does the whole system integrate with your back office? That's really, really important. Stock control systems, you know, warehouses and logistics companies that are selling stuff out for you. How do those things integrate? Because if it's your own site, it's your responsibility to do that. Yes, there are tools out there available to do it, but you've got to plug those tools in, or your web developer has got to plug those tools in. You know, marketing and promotion, if it's sitting on your site, that is not going to be found. Okay. It's, you know, what's that film? Is it Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. That philosophy of the internet has always been rubbish. It's never been as simple as just putting a website up and getting found. You have to work really hard at getting yourself found. You have to invest in search engine optimization, search engine marketing, social media advertising, building your social audience. You know, content marketing is really, really huge. That becomes a very, very big part of your job. I've said systems integration. Service availability sounds like a really obvious one, but we have seen in the last 3 months a lot of websites crashing. You know, and a lot of ability to process orders has been crashing. I'm thinking just about the flour industry. Has anyone, you know, when there was no flour on the shelves, everyone suddenly in lockdown became bakers, which annoyed me because I've been baking bread for the last 10 years myself, and I couldn't buy flour in the supermarket. We don't buy shop bought bread. We only I make it. Sorry, I am that man. That was very frustrating. And then I thought, okay, we'll log on to various different, you know, or places like mills were setting up e-commerce websites. They couldn't deal with the volume of orders. Some systems were crashing. So that's your responsibility. Is that service going to be available? Because actually, if you find, you know, a site that crashes or doesn't work or won't let you buy stuff, you kind of takes a long time before you go back to that as a consumer. So that becomes your thing. You know, being visible is really, really hard. Ensuring that you are constantly getting your products, you know, in front of people. Google Shopping, Merchant Center, all those sort of things. That's a full-time job. You know, let's say we're looking to sell internationally, and I hope you are, because that's what I do for a living. You on your own site, you are responsible for making sure that product is localized, or that website rather is localized to that particular territory that you're trying to sell into, or territories. And localization isn't necessarily just translation. It's actually it's far more about understanding the customer in that particular territory, what their requirements are of that particular product. Let's just take BMW, for example, as a good example. You know, they localize their product to the UK by changing the side of the car that we drive on, because, you know, we are the only ones that drive on the right hand side, and the Australians as well. But yeah, virtually everywhere else drives on the left hand side of the car. So, you know, BMW have localized their product so much. I'm not saying to do that, but they've done that so much. Okay, so that's kind of what I mean by localization. Dealing with fulfillment, how do you get that product to people? You know, are you just going to stuff it in a jiffy bag and chuck it in the Royal Mail? Are you going to get a courier company to do it? Are you going to get an organization or a company to handle all of that fulfillment for you? And then also the stuff that's coming back, how do you deal with that? You know, that becomes your problem on your own e-commerce site. Okay, so all of those things kind of eat into your margins, but you do have control. And for some people, that is definitely the right way to go. Marketplace scenarios, I'm going to do the same again, for and against. The big selling point of marketplace is you get access to their customers. We've already said, you know, that we're very loyal to marketplaces. We're very loyal to shops in general. I just think of marketplaces as being like supermarkets or like being department stores. That's how I think of them. And I will go kind of shopping when I want something. If I want something in the real life, I'll, you know, a new shirt or something like that, I'll go to one of a couple of shops and I will make my purchasing decision accordingly. With exactly the same with marketplace. They work really hard to attract those customers, and by listing on those marketplaces, you are inheriting the trust that marketplace has got. You know, the organizations, you know, companies like Newegg and like Amazon, you know, and like Flipkart, they've worked really hard at building the trust in their audience. It's why they've got these huge numbers of customers that come back and buy from them. So that gives you a much larger reach, that you might be able to get straight off the bat with your own site that you just built. It's just sitting there, and you're trying to market it, and you're investing in pay-per-click, but it's a slow burn to get there. A lot of them offer you a really good turnkey solution, and a lot of them offer a wholesale model as well. I'll talk about a couple in a minute, but they offer you a turnkey solution. So, they will warehouse your stock for you. They will fulfill it. They will deal with the returns. You pay for every little link in that chain, but actually all you have to do is make sure you've got stock there. Job done. Also, they'll handle a lot of the customer service, the out of hours customer service anyway. They will handle that for you in most cases. And they've also got, a lot of them got their own marketing platforms that you can get access to. Slight downside, you're going to lose a little bit of control of your brand. Okay, we've all experienced, the way products are represented on marketplaces, and sometimes it's just literally a product shot. It's like a product catalog shot, white background. A box of tea looks pretty much like a box of tea, looks pretty much like a box of tea. It's difficult. You lose control. You don't actually have any essence of your brand within that at all. What we call a lifestyle sort of images are harder to kind of get across on a marketplace. And also, actually, if that marketplace just decides one day, I'm going to close down. I've had Jeff Bezos wakes up one day and goes, oh dear, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to walk the earth like a shepherd. And he says, I'm just closing down Amazon. And you're entirely dependent on that. You've gone completely. This is going to be into your margin. Selling through marketplace, they are going to take their cut. They will take their cut. They will take a flat fee, many of them a month, and then commission. You've got to play by their terms and conditions. You're going to have to keep up with the inventory. Administering that as well is a big part. And quite often in a lot of marketplaces, I said about this earlier, the cost versus differentiation. There's going to be a bit of increased price sensitivity there as well. If you're selling a pair of denim jeans and someone else is selling a pair of denim jeans, I search for denim jeans for a man. Instantly I've got more products there, and I'm competing a little bit on price. Okay. Now, another thing that, especially in the Amazon world, people find with Amazon and a few others, is you can find your products suspended or delisted, and you don't know what you've done wrong. I had a client that had that because the titles, length of titles had changed on the marketplace, and hers were 2 characters too long, and she got basically sort of those products fell off until she went in and re-optimized it. And the other thing as well about marketplaces is they don't all behave the same. They've all got their little quirks. They've all got their little foibles. So whilst marketplaces offer you this great access to their customers, and they are fabulous, don't get me wrong, they are a really easy way of accessing different markets and accessing markets for the first time. There is a quid pro quo. They are businesses, and they are there to make money as well as you. Okay. And not all of them really care very much about you, the seller. They care about the buyer. Very customer focused. So you have to be prepared for that. You are to many marketplaces, you are a relatively small piece of the pie. So they actually care more about the customers than they do about their sellers within that. So that's marketplace solutions. So let's say, for example, we wanted to look at our own e-commerce things we're doing in that order. What are our options? Well, I've picked a few. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these are the most common ones that I see now in my job. Own site, on-site e-commerce solutions. There are some names in here that you will see, and they've all got their little foibles. I get asked all the time, what is the best solution for my business? What should I use? Should I use Shopify, or should I use, Woocommerce, or should I use Magento? It is a little bit of horses for courses, a little bit of what you've got the resources to do, how are you going to, resources, and a little bit about how scalable do you want this to be. So these are big names in the market. I'll just run through them really quickly and just give you my observations. So Shopify, really easy to get started. Okay. Integration with various different other systems like back office systems, fairly well catered for. It's a theme-based solution, so you can get up and running very quickly, but it relies a lot on plugins. The more things you plug in, it can slow right down to the point of actually you start getting penalized by Google because your page load speed is so slow. That's part of the sort of algorithms that Google uses. You know, it wants nice, fast, speedy paces. Also, because it's themed, you don't necessarily get the same flexibility with regards to mobile optimization. How does that look on a mobile phone? And I find some Shopify sites are well put together, but some Shopify themes don't work particularly well on a mobile. Okay, so you need to think about that, because 60% of searches on a mobile globally, you know, we're increasingly now using our phones to buy stuff as well. You know, before, for five years ago, we might use a bit of mobile. We might, you know, then we'd switch over to a proper PC to buy stuff. That's gone out the window now. You know, we're quite happy to buy on our mobiles. But yeah, so Shopify, great, get you up and running quickly, but do be aware, the more you chuck into it, the slower it goes. From an international stance, from an international trade stance, I don't find it the easiest solution to actually work with. You know, you've got a couple of things you can plug in, Langify and Weglot, they're the two big ones. You know, you can end up with lots of different stores, all looking at different parts of the world. And for a lot of businesses, especially very small businesses, limited number of resources, that's not necessarily the easiest solution. Especially if you've got one site facing the UK and one site facing the United States, you have to be very careful you're not competing against each other. I have helped a few businesses that have actually basically been competing against each other in search, which you know you have to watch out for with the same site. Magento, you used to hear Magento all the time. It's an open source platform, comes in two flavors, cloud kind of hosted, or you can actually get the stuff like WordPress and host it on your own server. It does feel a little bit outdated now. Obviously, Magento 2 is there. From an international perspective, I don't find it, again, the easiest solution to work with. It's better than it was. It's better than it was. A lot of, if you were launching a site now, would you particularly choose Magento? Probably not. I think there are better products out there on the market. BigCommerce. This is the next one I think on my list, isn't it? Yes, it is. This is a little bit like Shopify again, theme-based, slightly clunky, not as many free out-of-the-box themes. Some of the good themes you have to pay for. But from an international side of things, it takes a bit more development to get that working, and it's only good for what we call left to right languages. So any scripting languages that you might say, for example, Arabic goes right to left. That's not a particularly good platform for you. So you have to think future-proof. Where am I going in the future? Am I going to start selling, into the Middle East, where I need to, or to a country with a large Arabic population? They want their web pages read from right to left. Is that the best solution? One of the most common solutions. Next one, WordPress. Woocommerce on WordPress. It's had a bit of a kicking from some of the other players, and rightly so. I think it got a bit complacent, but from an international perspective, it's one of the ones I favor because WooCommerce itself integrates really well with WPML, which is the WordPress multi-language plugin, which enables you to then localize your particular site or pages or products to a multitude of different countries and territories and languages, and it does it actually pretty well. You can also, you have to spend a bit of time getting things like the shipping costs right. I've had a few businesses. I've just very recently helped a company out that was losing £35 every time they shipped something to the States because their developer hadn't set it up correctly, which, that eats into your profits. But it's still, it's still there. It's still a good solution. I think it has had a bit of a kicking from Shopify recently because Shopify has done a fabulously good job. But from my perspective, Woo is still a pretty easy thing to internationalize because of the really well-established WordPress multi-language plugin, and also WordPress multi-site. It works very well. Importantly, all of these solutions, when you're looking at international targeting, you need to make sure you've got a really easy way of implementing hreflang across the entire site, because that's how Google does your international targeting. And if you don't, you can run into all sorts of problems. The last two on there, Wicks and Squarespace. If you're really, really small and you're just starting out, then they're very easy to get going, but they are effectively just site builders, that people have chucked in e-commerce solutions to. So they're not fab, they're okay. Wix is not, in fact, both of them I think struggle with selling into China as well, because they're cloud-based software as a service. And I think, I'm right in saying, I don't think it's been lifted, but certainly Wix, you couldn't access Wix sites in China. So if someone that's changed, then I apologize to Wix, but it was certainly an issue. But if you're very, very small and you just need to get a site going quickly, they're not bad, because pretty much anyone can do it. Okay, so that's a look at some of the platforms. You know, if you are starting from scratch, that's one of the things you've got to get going. So you're brand new business, I want to sell online. Okay, get yourself up and running really quickly, but is that then going to be scalable? You don't want to be, a year in and say, right, we've got to completely redevelop our website. So if it was me and I was looking to start, I would probably go down one of two routes, probably either Shopify or Woocommerce, largely because there's a really, really big bank of people that know what they're doing on those products. So if you need to employ somebody, and they know WordPress and Woo, they know WordPress and Woo. It's a fairly easy solution for people that already use it to switch onto your store and work with that. Plus, actually, you can get a lot of it up and running yourself. And actually, the developers out there, because there's a lot of people that know it, they're slightly less expensive than some of the other developers that you might have to employ for other platforms. So let's have a quick look at marketplaces. And I've listed a few here, but this isn't exhaustive. So when we talk about marketplaces, the first thing everyone thinks about is Amazon. But these are just some of the other ones that you can consider around the world. So Amazon itself, it's both absolutely superb and also problematic. It is one of those platforms where the business doesn't get a lot of support. It gives you the support in terms of the offering for you, which is fabulous. Okay, so it's a turnkey solution. They will warehouse, fulfill. They've got the biggest logistics setup of any company that I can think of. You can easily access all of Europe very, very quickly at the click of a button. They will do chunk of translation for you. Check it. It's not always great. It is machine translation. It's not that always that good, but it does need regular optimization. And the best way to success on Amazon, as we know with a lot of these things, is to actually be prepared to put a little bit of investment into their Amazon marketing services and give them a bit of money. Pay per click. It's a pay per click model, and it works. It works really, really well actually. But if you're not optimizing your products, then even a pay per click model won't be great, because you'll possibly be targeting the wrong people. I can't say enough. I'll talk about it again in a minute. But yeah, actually, it's not bad. It's a pretty good solution. And let's face it, pretty much everybody, in the UK and across America, shops on it or has bought something on it. It's massive. It's massive. eBay used to be where you bought secondhand stuff. Nowadays, more new stuff is sold on eBay than anywhere else. Okay, it's a good platform, and it's a good first step for a lot of businesses actually looking to sort of try and expand across, and it will, it can do cross-border really, really well, but you're fulfilling the stuff yourself, although they have got some partners that you can work with, but you are effectively responsible for that. Whereas with Amazon, you can get Amazon to do the lot if you want to. That's great. Newegg is a platform some of you might have heard of. They are largely technology and lifestyle focused, and they will handle fulfillment for you. And they've got a number of different platforms across a number of different territories, US, Canada, etc. Okay. Moving further afield, Mercado Libre, they have got 174 million users across Latin America, which is a huge chunk of the pie. But they're not just a marketplace. They are kind of all things to all men. And marketplace is one of their services, and it's a kind of, although it doesn't look like it, it's a kind of a little bit like eBay. You can either auction stuff off or have it at a set price. But if Latin America is a market that you're looking to target, or particular countries within that, I think I would definitely give it a look. Tmall gives you access into China. Everyone's probably heard of it, but it's quite expensive to market yourself on it because it's a very crowded marketplace. I would say you'd be looking at least 30 or 40% to start with of your income going back into marketing, within that particular platform. If you've got deep pockets, it's definitely a good one. If you haven't, it's a harder one just because of the volume, the noise. The more noise there is, the louder you need to shout. The louder you need to shout, the deeper you need your pockets to be. Now, Rakuten is, I think it's the 4th largest e-commerce platform currently. Very big in Japan, as all great 1980s rock bands were. But you need to have an entity in Japan to sort of sell this. So you need to have something registered in Japan in order to sell on that platform. TradeMe, some of you might have heard of. I just run through this really quickly. TradeMe, because some people won't have heard this one. I'm just talking about them. TradeMe itself is a platform based in New Zealand, which is interesting because, you know, actually they're the first country to start emerging properly from COVID lockdown. Things are starting to get back to normal in New Zealand. My friend posted a picture of him in a pub in New Zealand the other day. In a pub. Yeah, do you remember those days? How we remember those days. Yeah, so they are starting to kind of go about their business in a bit more of a normal fashion. There's a big affinity with the New Zealand audience and the UK audience in terms of products. There's no language barriers. And actually, you on TradeMe, you can buy everything from a house to, jokingly, we'll say you can buy a part. It's got a dating site as well as a real estate site and everything in between. Okay, but you do fulfill from the UK. They don't have a fulfillment model at all at the moment. Cdiscount is a platform I get asked about a lot, but actually, unless you're in the economy line, unless you've got budget stuff, I wouldn't necessarily look at it. It is very budget stuff. It is very price sensitive. And it's certainly not as buoyant as I would say for most businesses as it was maybe a few years ago. Looking elsewhere, OnBuy. I don't know if anyone has heard of OnBuy, but that is a very, very growing platform it's servicing very, very well 51 countries, but there's no fulfillment model. And I'll just skip through a couple of these other ones you might not have heard of. Wayfair, you might actually have seen loads of adverts for, but Wayfair offers a wholesale model if you can get listed mostly in home and lifestyle, but you have to have really, really good metadata for them. Otherwise, that ain't going to work. Okay, so you have to supply them with really top-notch imagery, really top-notch metadata, product descriptions, tags, the whole shamoli. And the last one I'm going to mention, because you can actually find the rest of these out online very easily, is Keola, which offers pretty much its 3 flavors, but a wholesale and fulfillment model if you wanted to, or it can integrate with your own website and it gives you access into China, possibly a bit of an easier route in than Tmall, but doesn't have quite the same size audience. Now, all of those platforms, there's a lot of them, there's hundreds more. If you want to find out more about platforms, I'm going to recommend this next slide, this next site, which is Selling Online Overseas, which is basically a website put together by the Department for International Trade. If you've got something you want to sell, you can log on to this website, tell it what kind of stuff you're selling, where you want to sell, and it will give you a list of marketplaces that are there, some of which, as the DIT, we've got special deals with, to be honest. So you can get reduced commission or free listing. I think one of them offers you pay the first month and you get 12 months subscription to it. So you don't pay as a vendor on that platform for 12 months, just the usual commission stuff. And that's really, really worth checking out. So if you do nothing else today, go and check that particular site out, because it can open up a whole bunch of different ideas. And there's platforms on there. Every time I go on there, I find another platform I've never ever heard of. So it's definitely worth looking at. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to this next slide, because although I haven't got much to say on it, because I could go on all day and I haven't got time, it's really, really key. Everything you put online, whether or not you use your own e-commerce solution or whether or not you use an e-marketplace, it all comes down to optimization. Okay, all you are dealing with, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with your own site or whether you're dealing with Amazon or eBay, all you are dealing with is a massive, great big filing system. That is what it is. In order to get found, it's just a big filing system. And as we know with filing systems, you need to make sure you put the stuff in the right file so someone can find it. End of story. And hands up, who likes filing? No one's put their hand up. Well, actually, my mum used to love filing. But filing in the kind of internet search world is basically the best way of thinking about optimization. You are trying to optimize your pages or your listings or your catalog items so they return in search. So when someone looks for that, you're in the right folder. Okay, so when that screen appears with that stuff on it, whether it be a search engine result page or whether it be a search on Amazon or search on Newegg, you appear. So you have to think about it in a slightly different way. Firstly, the first thing is not what do I as the business search for this, but what does the user search for? User intent. Put the person at the center of everything that you do from a search perspective. How are they going to look for this? What are they going to be looking for? Okay, now in certain markets, let's go for the cost market. Okay, toothpaste. I'm going to be looking for toothpaste. I might be looking for non-fluoride toothpaste. That's a big thing in at the moment, isn't it? Non-fluoride toothpaste, because people are concerned about levels of fluoride. So, you know, I instantly want to differentiate myself from the other. So non-fluoride toothpaste versus normal toothpaste. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in there with all the Aquafreshes of this world. So that is a classic thing of how to optimize. You think, what is the searcher going to be looking for? Because you want to pin all of your, you know, your key phrases, if you like, within the marketplace, or within Google or Bing or Yandex if you're in Russia, or Baidu in China. What are they going to search for that I need to be in the mix for? Okay, and then within that, how much am I talking about that particular product within that particular listing, within the description, within the meta description on the on my web page, or on my Woocommerce listing, or on my Shopify bit? You know, what am I giving the search engine, whether that be Google, Bing, Amazon, you know, whatever that search engine is? Am I giving it enough information that it can decide that my particular thing meets the search's requirements? Okay, so that's, you know, optimization is really key. And then the more people click on that particular thing pretty much across all platforms, actually, with the possible exception of eBay, but, you know, pretty much across all platforms, the more popular you are, the higher up that list you will be. So, you know, that's a little bit like a chicken and an egg situation, isn't it? But the more you are clicked on and engaged with, the higher up that long list of toothpastes or blue denim jeans you start to appear. So optimization is absolutely key. It doesn't matter whether you start own site, whether you start marketplace, whether you do a little bit of both. You have to optimize, but you have to optimize for those channels. Where are you going to be found? So if it's own site, you're going to be found through Google, Bing, Baidu, Yandex, all the big key search engines. Got to optimize for those search engines. You know, Google Shopping is a huge one. Merchant Center, massive, massive, massive thing. You know, so you need to be optimizing for those things. And when necessary, putting in a little bit of budget, putting in some pay-per-click. And you have to be careful with pay-per-click, because that can actually be a bit of a slippery slope where you can be paying more than it's actually worth to sell. So you do have to be careful with that. Okay. And on the marketplace, again, where do I need to be? How do I pigeonhole myself? Where do I need to be filed? And what are people going to be looking for? That's really, really key. Okay. The other thing that is really, really important as well, especially if you're in the own site model, is how can I integrate that optimization? How can I optimize my stuff within a social media environment so people can find me? Let's think about Instagram. You know, you can sell stuff through Instagram now. There are some parameters. There are some things you need to do in order to do that, but you can sell stuff through Instagram. But you need to make sure your stuff's findable. And actually, one of the things you have to do within that is build up a decent enough audience. Okay, so how can you pigeonhole your stuff? So you're talking about what we used to call hashtags. Instagram now refers to as niches, finding your niche, lots of different niches. Actually pigeonholing yourself, putting yourself in those particular niches so that your audience starts to grow. That is still optimization. You're still optimizing your posts for that particular platform. Okay. Now, I think this is probably my last slide because my voice is starting to hurt, and that's normally a good sign. Do you have to do this yourself? Well, yeah, you either do or you have to get someone to do it for you. It's as simple. It doesn't happen magically. There's no one button. When I start talking to clients on a one-to-one basis, a lot of them suddenly say, well, there seems like a lot of work here to be done. And then actually it is a lot of work here to be done. Let's say, for example, you just invented this mug. You know, I know I didn't invent that mug. I think I bought it next actually, but I just invented this mug and I needed to sell that mug. How would I sell that mug? I'd have a lot of stuff to set up. Would I have to, I might have to, build my own store. I might have to put a stall out the front. There's a lot of work in getting that to market. There's a lot of work in getting stuff to market through a digital means, because you've got to get yourself the cut through. And you can end up managing multiple different channels. And we call this sort of omni-channel marketing. And it's really, really important that all things work as seamlessly as they possibly can. You have to integrate your back office with all the front offices that you're going to have, all the front of house things you're going to have, whether that be different marketplaces, on-site things. You cannot be selling stuff. Let's say, for example, you've got stuff on eBay, you're selling on eBay and you're taking orders on eBay, chung, 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 and you're taking orders on your website, chung, 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 chung. You've got 5 things in stock, say, for example, and it's not very many. Let's just make it simple. Okay. And you've got 5 things showing in stock on eBay and 5 things showing in stock on your website. What happens if you sell 10 things? You don't have any stock. You've then got customers waiting. You've then got an awkward situation whereby you've got to go to customers and say, really sorry, I know we said we'd dispatch next day, but we can't do that because we actually have run out of stock. I'm really sorry. Having those things integrated together is really, really key and really, really important. And there are lots of products out there that will help you do this, it's worth researching them. There's lots of stuff out there from people like, Plenty Markets and Channel Advisor and other organizations that will help you to integrate your particular offering into both your own e-commerce solution and also, many of the marketplaces, not all of the marketplaces out there, but many of the marketplaces that are out there, because it can be a huge, huge headache for businesses. And I know businesses are starting to employ omni-channel managers, people just to look after this particular thing. It's kind of part marketing, part logistics. It's part getting stuff sold, part getting stuff there. Actually, with that very simplistic example I gave you, 5 items in stock in total, but you've got both systems showing us 5 and all 5 get sold in the morning. What do? Chaos ensues, especially if it's 2 months delivery time, lead time from your supplier in China, wherever it is that's coming over. You have to be able to balance those out, and it is a headache. So actually, some of these kind of integrators or aggregators, can make life an awful lot easier. It's just as simple as some of them just as simple as actually sending over a spreadsheet of what you've got and what it is, and it disseminates out to the world. But that adds another overhead into your chain. Okay, that's a really brief 101 straight through. It's 7 minutes to, and I'm conscious of finishing on time. I know we started a tiny bit late, but I will now like to open up the floor. Say, has anyone got any questions? If I can't answer it now, I don't know everything there is to know in the world, despite what I tell my kids. But if I can't answer it now, I'll certainly get back to you. So any questions coming in?
Thanks, Nigel. We've got a few questions here in the Q&A box. The first one is Facebook starting a shopping channel? If so, would you recommend it? And should you have more than one platform to sell your products?
Is Facebook starting a shopping channel? So Facebook itself, you've been able to sell through Facebook for a while. Actually, you can set up your store and link it through to your own e-commerce site. And yeah, there's always been rumors of them actually starting up their own actual physical marketplace. As with all things, it won't roll out globally. I imagine that that's a space they are going to occupy very quickly, because they all want to be more like WeChat in China, which is integrated e-commerce and social from the off. That's how it was effectively put together. So they're all trying to invade that space. Again, with Instagram, the same thing applies. In-app shopping is growing. So yeah, Facebook has had stores for a while, and people can successfully sell. And in fact, one of the easiest ways of getting to market is through Facebook Marketplace. That's a really simple way of getting to market, and you don't really need to set anything up, and it's actually free. I've sold stuff through Facebook Marketplace, just things that I've had lying around. I just needed to get like an old chest of drawers and things. It sounds silly, but actually there's no difference between selling a chest of drawers and selling a bag of flour or something. It's putting your product in front of an audience. So yes, that already exists, and they will be expanding it as we move forward.
Thanks, Nigel. We've got another question here. What are the thoughts on WeChat mini program?
Right. Okay. Can I answer that one offline? Is that okay? Because I'm going to have to do a bit more research on that one. I don't want to answer something and get it wrong.
Of course. We'll be in touch with the person that's asked that question and make sure we can advise you better. Nigel, do you know what proportion of Amazon sales are that on Prime?
Proportion wise, off the top of my head, I don't know what it currently is. I knew about 2 years ago. I know that within certain demographics, 35 to 55-year-old women, a huge proportion of that is, especially the ones that have got, if you've got Prime, you tend to filter by Prime. If you can go Prime, I would always recommend going Prime with Amazon if you can. The Prime audience it's their best product they've got, Prime, actually, by a long chalk, and they throw a lot of money into Prime. They throw a lot of things into Prime, music streaming, films, and because of that, it's drawn a huge audience. And once you've paid for it, it's that free delivery, peace of mind thing. So yeah, Prime is very heavily favored over non-Prime within the Amazon world.
Thank you. Where is the best place to sell a unique quality product from a company that has a social mission and values, a platform where people think they're likely to think first before buying? Is there one?
So there are lots of ethical marketplaces out there. I had one in my head about 30 seconds ago. I was just about to mention it, and it's just gone ethical products, I want to say. But there are lots of ethical marketplaces out there, and they are getting better, and they do have a good audience for that particular part of the audience, really. It's part of consumers. So I've got a few more, actually. If they want to drop me an email, I can certainly, I've got a little spreadsheet somewhere with a list of them, but it will take me about 5 minutes to go and find it. So if they can drop me an email, I can certainly send it over.
Thanks, Nigel. I'll put you in touch. Do different platforms suit different products?
Yeah, absolutely. Some platforms will only touch certain products. Newegg itself, let's just pick on Newegg. It's very tech, lifestyle tech. Really, it's like Fnac as well in France. Very tech and media focused. Not all platforms will sell food and drink. I think we get lured into Amazon because it's an everything shop, and we think that they're all like that. And to a certain extent, I suppose things like eBay are an everything shop as well. But some platforms, are very, very specific about what they will take, and I think that's really good. Etsy, is a it's quite strict on its kind of handmade and kind of crafty ethics, and I think for a while it lost its way and people were just selling stuff they were bringing in. I think it still happens, but they tried to clamp down on it a little bit to actually keep a little bit of a point of difference if you want to get something that's a bit more unique. For example, as I say, if you check out the selling online overseas tool, even if you're not going to necessarily always sell overseas, I would key it in just to see, the sector that you're selling in. They are all broken up into what they will list and accept and what they're known for, and it's a really good litmus test, or a really good test to actually just to see where there is out there for your particular sector and products.
Thanks, Nigel. I think we've got time for one very quick last question.
Okay.
Starting from scratch and quick,
Yeah.
a scalable start, would you suggest Woocommerce?
Yeah, I would still, actually. And I know it became very unpopular because Shopify came along and took the market, but starting from scratch, quick and scalable, I personally would still pick it just about. I think that doesn't make it the best solution out there. But it certainly sits in that lovely bit of middle ground where it can do really small quite well, but actually can do really big quite well. I know quite a lot of larger brands out there that you'll be shocked when you actually look at their site and you think, oh, that's great, what's that built in? And you do a quick look at the back end of it, and it's built on WordPress and Woo. And you think, well, if it's coping with that, it's doing okay. Nothing is flawless. Nothing is without fault, you know. So they all come with their own little foibles.
Great, thanks, Nigel. Thank you for your time and expertise today. Thanks for everybody who's joined online. And we hope that you found today's webinar insightful. If you have any questions, then please do get in touch. And any questions we've been unable to answer during the course of today, we'll obviously get in touch post-webinar with an advisor to try and answer those. Just before you go, there's a further list of webinars on the Business West website relating to COVID-19 and support. So if there's any other support you feel you would like, then please do visit our website. And before you go, if we could just take a minute just to answer 3 very quick questions about your experience of today's webinar, we'd appreciate it. Thank you very much and goodbye.